Good morning and welcome to Talking Point here on WESN, the content capital. I'm Keaton Shaw, and this morning the nation is once again devastated and sharing the grief with the family at the news that 3 of the 4 bodies of the divers that were involved in last Friday's accident were recovered at around 5:55 p.m. yesterday evening. It is fortunate that they were able to retrieve the bodies, and according to Paria Fuel Trading Company Limited, they spared no sense of anything whatsoever and treated the bodies with the utmost respect. And whilst it can be appreciated on the part of Paria for doing that, a lot of questions still loom. It is not going to take away the grief of the family. It is not going to take away the questions. But that is what we will seek to do this morning in trying to develop the conversation further in relation to the latest that we know and what we would have heard between last week Friday and last night. Alongside me this morning is my co-host, colleague, and good friend, Mr. Sean Michael Small. Good morning, Sean.
Good morning, Keaton. And yes, it was, unfortunately, the news is not necessarily a surprise at this point. It would be more of a surprise based on so much that we just don't know what's going on with regards to those pipes, if they were able to survive, if anyone was able to survive. There are a lot of questions and raw emotions. Again, I would caution viewers to be careful of making assumptions and understand that for the most part, a lot of what anybody says, including not just the family, because that will be the defense of a lot of the officials, but including the officials themselves, there would be some amount of speculation in there because it's not as though there is perfect knowledge of just exactly what happened when it more or less all happened underwater, and it was not an event that would have been well witnessed by observers. So, and that is something that the Minister of Energy, he did state, he cautioned not to make any sort of assumption. He himself cautioned, saying he is not looking to defend anybody. And I do believe that he did also, at one point in his press conference, did call out the communication or lack thereof. I could be wrong about that. But communication on this matter, or this matter might be an example, once again, of just poor communication. That is unnecessary. It's not as though, there was some big secret conspiracy plot that needed to be covered up. Now, there might be some things that they haven't told us, but my point is a good amount of what they told us, they could have communicated the same details, but a different manner could have helped soothe the situation and give us a somewhat different outcome with regards to how we now respond to the communication.
Now, yesterday we were, or at least I was, and I'll speak on my part, I was defensive of the situation from the aspect that, as Sean would have pointed out, it's very difficult at this point to really understand what would have transpired in terms of the actual accident, and it was unnecessary for the rumors spreading within the public domain. It just adds to the grief. It adds to the situation even further. But though we've noted that and we've concretized that point, this morning I'm focusing more on the management aspect of this entire situation. From the time the accident happened up until yesterday evening. And in my opinion, listening to the Minister of Energy and Energy Affairs, he's very well spoken. You cannot fault him for that. However, unfortunately, he contradicted himself. He did contradict himself, and we can get into that in a moment. But also, I'd like to focus on the management of Paria Fuel Trading Company Limited, because the chairman of Paria, Newman George, has been, well, rather quiet, as you would think that a chairman overseeing the operations of the company would at least be more vocal and at least be more open to the public. Then there's another aspect of this that we must look at. in terms of the entire safety, the rescue operations on the part of all involved. Because the family members are now stating, as well as other individuals, be it political activists, social activists, or various political leaders, are indicating that there was no physical effort to rescue these divers. And that on the part of PARIA, they messed up big time. But before we go any further, I believe that we have just a bit of what the Minister of Energy and Energy Affairs would have stated yesterday in his press conference. He also indicated that they are establishing a three-member independent panel to have a thorough investigation over this.
I actually think there might be more than that.
I know initially it was 3, it's probably 5 now.
If I remember correctly. Even in his announcement, he wanted technical experts from different companies, and I believe he left at least one slot where he didn't necessarily say a specific source, but again, a technical expert, as well as I believe there might have been one other member to just oversee or administer the panel. I'm not entirely sure, don't quote me on that. But yes, he wanted an independent panel. My only thing is, and this might be pandering to the politics of our country, and this might be unnecessary, but my only thing is, very often you get an independent panel. Usually that means people from the private sector not associated with the company involved or the government. And yet people still scoff at and question the independence of any independent inquiry. So I would wonder if a common practice now may be, should we have political observers or participants who could be like, well, no, I was on the panel and this is what happened. Maybe you bring in somebody from the opposition, it gives them an opportunity to spin the information however they want to, but they would spin it anyway. And at least this is a chance to say, well, okay, no, but so-and-so was on the panel. He saw behind the scenes. Like, we literally cannot be more transparent than that by giving access to somebody who has a bias against us.
Okay, just before we get into those clips, how independent is an independent panel if they're appointed by a minister or a certain entity? How independent is the panel?
Right, but then at that, okay, so then maybe the panel could be determined by a joint committee. The problem, of course, is similar to what we have with our legislation. You know, you run the risk of, well, this one wants that candidate and the next one wants the next candidate. And we're not even talking about PNM people want a PNM candidate or a PNM independent person, and UNC people want a UNC independent person. It could be legitimate, a choice between multiple people who are legitimately independent, but each side just has their beliefs on who they want or who they feel is best. So we're not even talking about politics, we're talking about just their thought process on who is best for the panel, and that could hold up the panel for days, weeks, who knows. So there is a catch-22 of even just determining who does it could be controversial. But that's why I said participate, because if you participate, I would assume you would see all the information. You could question them at length. You've seen everything the inquiry is seeing.
My second issue with this is that, I do apologize for having to raise the issues, but this is what we need to focus on at this point. The operations and the part of the efforts turned from one of rescue to recovery. They have recovered 3 bodies. Our condolences to the family. We do feel your hurt. Reading the details of this entire story was so heart-wrenching for me. Having to listen and having to read what was said on the part of the diver, I believe Christopher Boudram, the lone survivor who was rescued and taken to the San Fernando General Hospital for treatment. He remains in a stable condition, thankfully for that. But it's heart-wrenching, it really is. And our condolences to the family. No matter what we say and no matter what we do, it will never, ever, ever take away that pain, that loss, and that suffering. What we're trying to focus on now is to see how best we can get these answers to the questions that not only the family have, but everyone in Trinidad and Tobago has. And that is really, really the only thing, I suppose, at this point that we can do. and focusing on this independent panel on the part of the Minister of Energy and Energy Affairs, you can question the independence if it's appointed by a government minister or any entity that is politically affiliated, whether it be a state enterprise or a management, executive management of any group.
So one thing I found curious, he did say, and I had to reread it to remember, he did say that it would be chaired by one of the permanent secretaries. And I did wonder to what extent, yes, I understand technically an argument could be made, they are supposed to be independent of political parties. However, they are currently employed by the government, and the government is currently being run by one political party. So the independence of it, unfortunately, you leave yourself open to be questioned on the independence now of the chair.
But putting that aside, I'm not entirely sure how a permanent secretary is in the best position to chair this committee. But nevertheless, my other issue with this is how many investigations, how many panels have happened within the last 10, 15 years here in Trinidad and Tobago? How many independent bodies have we appointed? There was an entire issue in relation to the Port Authority of Trinidad and Tobago. A body was formed. I never got any report on that.
To be fair,
and that was how many years ago?
Fair, we got information from the reports. I believe you said you had the whole reports from the health team.
Yes, we did. The Minister of Health indicated that they would make that public.
Technically, it was late. It was later than what was the original expressed deadline, but,
yes, but
it was
that's
within
understood.
a reasonable time.
That's understood
Right.
why it was late. You can't announce it on the Saturday and say that you're putting this together and expect the report on the Friday, especially if you're compiling information and data over the last 2 years. But another aspect of this, and again, I'm so sorry that we have to dive so deep into this. We have to analyze this. Taking a look at another independent panel that is being appointed in relation to investigating the blackout in Trinidad and Tobago. They said that report is not going to be made public. They can't guarantee that's going to be made public. We have, what about the Roadmap to Recovery Committee? I'm just stating,
my problem with that is
independent panels and investigations have taken place and have been appointed. And we in Trinidad and Tobago never get anything out of it.
My problem with that is we're not some strategic location under constant military threat, right? We don't have the keys to invasion routes into the rest of the Caribbean. So why? What is the big issue about revealing what happened with regards to the blackouts? I don't necessarily see a reason, and if they don't need to spell it out for us, but if they don't give us a reason, then that can't be acceptable to just say, well, we're going to have an inquiry, but we don't know if we'll be able to make it public. Then, to the public, we don't care about the inquiry. What's the point of telling us there's an inquiry and you can't tell us what actually the inquiry uncovered? So why does that matter to us?
Now, before we get lost in that, let us focus this at hand, and we can only hope the report on the part of this independent panel is made public. But let's take a look now at what the Minister of Energy and Energy Affairs stated yesterday.
All right, well, we do have a clip from Stuart Young's press conference, obviously condensed and summarized for time, but let's take a look where he spells out what they believe to be the issue that caused the accident.
I am here to cast no judgment, no defense on anyone who's involved in the operations. The hyperbaric chamber was inserted over this pipeline, and what it then does is it pumps out the water to create a airspace for persons to work in. Is where these 5 men were working. 4 of them were the divers working on it. The 5th man, who is our fortunate survivor, Mr. Budram, was actually the rescue diver, and hence the reason why he had on his tanks. There were 2 flanges installed there. The first one was a piece of rubber between 2 metal plates, and they meet between these 2 points. So they were inserted somewhere around here. 2 pieces of metal and a rubber piece in between. And from what we can gather at this stage, unfortunately, when the first one was removed, something took place that created a suction, sucking the 5 divers in from what was a air chamber into this 30-inch pipeline that you see going along in the shape of a U. Eventually, through one of the underwater cameras, if you go back to the diagram, you would see from that berth 6 elbow along the pipeline, 120 feet, they met an obstruction that was diving equipment stuck. So far, I've been informed that the thought process is that this diving equipment is 2 air tanks that men were carrying on their backs, and that unfortunately blocked the ROV and the camera system from going any further. After Mr. Bram was rescued, weren't other divers allowed to go in and perform a rescue? Fellow citizens, at this stage, as I said, there's no room for speculation, no room for assumptions. Those were judgment calls by persons at the time. I certainly don't have the answer for that. I am not even going to speculate an answer. From what I was told is the experts there at the time, including the Trinidad and Tobago Coast Guard, did risk assessments and took decisions that it was too risky. From the diagram I've shown you, what I can tell you is you are leaping onto the unknown, literally. And that the judgment call may have been made that an additional person going into distress, being lost and being injured or loss of life, was not part of that risk assessment at the time.
So that was just some of the Minister of Energy's press conference where he, again, I'll say, he wanted to make the statement that he is not here to judge anybody or on the matter. He is just presenting the facts of what they do know. They do not yet know exactly why there was the suction force that pulled the men into the pipe. And as you have seen, he could only say what their theories are as it is right now. And that is, I would say, what he is supposed to be saying, because he doesn't know, so we cannot say beyond what he doesn't know.
Now, I'm a bit conflicted because I appreciate the minister coming out and speaking to the nation and informing us at least to what he's aware, or at least we assume that is all that he's aware of. Chances are that's not the case. But nevertheless, he came and he spoke. He provided a diagram and he gave analysis. He spoke to us. He tried to explain as much as possible. In relation to the question asked as to why rescue divers were not allowed, his answer is not sufficient. I am sorry, especially from the minister, knowing that this operation is now close to 5 days. Today will be the 5th day. His answer is not acceptable. To say that, folks, it will be premature to speculate. I don't have the answers. From what I understand, experts on the scene indicated that it was too risky. First of all, what experts? I mean, are we really labeling the Coast Guard in this instance the experts? I'm not trying to in any way, put them down or speak down upon them. But the minister, and this is where we need to take into account everything that he said. He indicated himself that he can assure the nation and the family that everything possible, everything within their power to get done was done and is being done. Well, and at the same time, he goes on to say, well, I admit that there were gaps in Para's handling of the situation on the part of communication, but not only in terms of communication, but in terms of why the divers weren't allowed to go as well. There are 2 reasons that were stated. One, in relation to they needed a license. The minister himself suggested that that could have been waived in that instance of an emergency.
Right.
2, because a change in shift, a change in personnel. That was another reason that was stipulated as to why it is these divers could not go. And this is what I'm saying. Yesterday, we tried to analyze this as best as possible with what information we have at hand. With all the information that's now coming in, something has to give on Para.
So with regards to the shift change, that could be bad emergency procedures. The thing is, though, when you have an emergency, there's usually a judgment call. Do you waive procedures at times when it seems as though they're getting in the way, or do you not? I think you could argue that as often as it helps, it also causes greater danger when you just arbitrarily decide to waive procedures. When procedures are properly laid out, they are something to fall back on, especially when you face a situation with the unknown. Now, with regards to the minister said with the answer, I think ultimately, the people who had the best, how should I put this? The best expertise in the area, whether or not they were experts in this sort of rescue, and probably the ones who were liable. So we could then possibly now go back and look at their judgment call and see if it was the reasonable one. Not necessarily if it was the right one, but if it was the reasonable one given the information that they had at the time. And from what I understand, it could be argued that there was multiple instances of people getting involved. And I'm not sure if he is literally saying for the entire rescue effort, that determination took place and covered the entire rescue effort. I believe it was the final decision. Now, there is a dispute with regards to what happened with that decision. But his statement is to some extent fair. The people who I believe are responsible for the safety did not necessarily want more divers going in. That's reasonable. There are further claims then that now bring the situation and make it further questionable. And unfortunately, given the fact that there are public claims, I will not say that what the minister said was insufficient with regards to in general. But because there are public claims out there, they do need to be answered as best as possible right now. And that is to say, why were certain decisions made? I don't know if we're going to get into that now. We do have another clip to show with regards to one of the family members.
No, let's take a quick break here in the program. Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll take a look at that. And then we'll also take a look at another individual who was on the site. A controversial figure of sorts for some individuals. But I'm not going to put that label on this individual. But when we return, we'll take a look at other aspects of this entire, again, need I say, saddening, painful, hurtful, heart-wrenching tragedy. Let's take a break here on Talking Point.
Gift giving during a lockdown can still be hassle-free with a gift from FanZone with delivery options available nationwide. Visit and browse our Facebook and Instagram pages for all your official licensed merchandise and apparel and have it delivered to your door. Find us on Facebook and Instagram. FanZone, we've got you covered.
The best birthday gifts are at dbesttoys.com. Shop for the best brands you love at the best prices. Like VTech, Leapfrog, Fisher-Price, Play-Doh, Hot Wheels, Barbie, Cocomelon, LOL, Baby Alive, Crayola.
Visit us in-store at Forces Flagship MacBean. Shop online now at dbesttoys.com. Order via call or WhatsApp at 32DBEST to order. And remember, we have the best toys at the best prices.
In these COVID times, things are a little different. You may have some skepticism when it comes to going to the hospital or going into the doctor because of crowds or because of so many people being present. We are now in the world of telemedicine.
Telemedicine is the innovation of using technology to treat patients at a distance.
Zakia is here today. She's going to show us a little bit of what she does as part of her at-home exercise routine. What's up, Doc? Tuesdays and Thursdays here on WESN, Content Capital.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing on it.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is it no pressure on Nicholas Ball?
And
it makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the red, white, and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
It may seem like the hardest thing to do right now, but we all need each other to wear a mask, wash our hands, watch our physical distance, and stay at home. We need you safe. Together we can make the difference. Together we can curb the spread of COVID-19. So let's be responsible in our actions. The Trinidad and Tobago Red Cross Society. Mission-based, people-focused, community-driven.
Welcome back to Talking Points here on WESN, the content capital. Sean, there's still a lot more to go in this entire discussion. I know that we have videos from one of the family members, and again, that individual whom we'll get into later on.
Just before we go into that, as we give a chance for our commentator to join us, I just want to give a quick update. I know Keaton said yesterday that we would speak on Ukraine. We did not forget about that topic. However, because of this situation as it's unfolding, this tragedy, we thought it was important to give it our attention. I will just say, though, that the situation in Ukraine is something that we are monitoring. The war seems to be going in an interesting direction, to say the least, notwithstanding predictions that it will be over very soon. Resistance to the invasion seems to be stiffening, and negotiations had commenced yesterday but got nowhere. Hopefully it will be resolved, but we'll continue to monitor that situation as it goes on.
That's another... Oh, boy, I've been following that war, Sean. I've been endlessly looking at all these news sites. I've been following it online, via television, and just through any means necessary, any means possible. And the description of what is taking place on the ground,
I don't think we've seen... I don't think... For the internet age, with all the social media coverage, the cameras, the phone cameras, etc., I don't think we've seen half of what has been going on with regards to the fighting.
No, we haven't.
It seems as though the Russian military has been blunted quite harshly. Their morale potentially is low. Their logistics is not keeping up. And Putin's attack has stalled, which is very interesting. The only question is, we really don't know exactly what his mental state is. So there were reports that their nuclear forces got into a heightened state of readiness. That is an alarm bell that I literally had not experienced in my lifetime. It is the first time that I have experienced the fear in any small capacity, because it is small at this point, of nuclear weapons being potentially used.
Let's pause on that for now. We would certainly get into that later, because there's a lot taking place. This morning there was a special sitting of the European Union heads, so we could get all that.
I think also the UN met yesterday.
Yes. But anyway, folks, joining us now via Zoom is our guest commentator for Tuesdays. We welcome to the program Mr. Kemuel Pascal, former youth parliamentarian. Good morning, Kemuel.
Good morning, Sean and Keaton. It is my pleasure to be here. Good morning to your viewers and listeners as well.
Kemuel, thank you for joining us. Kemuel, I'm sure that you would have been following this unfortunate accident that transpired on Friday and all the details that have come to light since then.
Yes, I have been following it. I think I first saw information via Twitter. That would have been probably just after 8 on Friday evening. And I was like, all right, cool. Hopefully they're going to rescue the divers, whatever is the case. Then on Saturday morning, I would have seen a video where someone who works at Paria Fuel Trading stated that the pipe would have lost pressure and the persons are still stuck within it. By then, Paria would have already released a statement, their first statement on the matter. And thereafter, we had the Minister of Energy and Energy Affairs, Minister Young, meeting with the families subsequently. And we are where we are now, which is that we have, but they rather have been able to recover the bodies of 3 of the 4 divers.
Well, Kimball, I'm glad that you've joined us at this point because while you're with us, we have a bit more commentary on the part of family members who were at the site since the news first broke to them on Friday. And Sean, I think it's best that we take a look at that now.
Yeah, let's take a look at that because some strong claims were made. A little bit of strong language was used in the moment. And it does bring up questions. And I think as much as the Minister of Energy was right to say it's not good to speculate, unfortunately, this is someone who, he says he was there. No one has disputed that fact, so we should believe that he was there. He has made definitive claims, and we need them to be answered because he's not necessarily speculating. He has direct questions with regards to specific incidences or actions that were taken during the rescue effort.
So let's take a look now at the video of one of the family members of the divers.
I was called an hour after. My brother called me. He said, everybody's shaking on the barge and nobody know what to do. I gathered 2 of my divers and we came to the rescue. When we went, we reached on site. We reached on site about a half an hour after that call. We organized to dive and check the chamber. And we noticed that it didn't have nobody inside. One of the divers was on the top of the riser, which was Christopher, banging on the pipe. Nobody after an hour, he banging an hour inside. Nobody to rescue him. Only when me and my divers came, we rescued him. When we rescued him, he told me my father is right behind him. Go down for your father. It took me about 15 minutes to organize my gear to go down on the pipe. I swim down the pipe about 70 feet down. I did not locate him. I located his dive top. I tried to swim as far as I could. I did not locate him. After we came back up, we told them that we didn't find nobody else. So we had to try a different alternative. When we came back, manager, so-called manager, said, do not dive into the pipeline again. And I asked, who is the manager? Say that. Nobody didn't want to say the name. But I would say the name because this man, Colin Piper, close, right? Tell my men not to dive the pipeline again, right? Then again, they bring the professional dive boat, Subsea Global, to use the commercial equipment, which was the right thing, but that was hours after. We still had time to save them, guys. Still had time. But you know what the orders they get? The orders they get was to plug the flange and block the divers from surfacing back up where we rescued the first man. Why would you give an order like that and block the only entrance the fellas know to surface for help? Right? And I told them, do not block it. Let me send a commercial diver down with the proper lifeline and let me rescue them, guys. Again, the managers is the ones. Them is the dive expert. Them is the dive expert here. I don't know what kind of brain cell this man have, right? All this talk you're talking in the press conference. Try not to cover up your tracks, partner. Because you're not covering up your track. You are a murderer in my eyes.
Yes!
Yes!
You know, sorry, Sean, go ahead.
So, I mean, one of the claims that he stated, I wanted to make it clear. He says it wasn't Coast Guard experts and dive experts, it was management of the facility that, and I believe the name that he called out is not a diver. As far as I'm aware, I could be wrong. So it was interesting, some of the claims that he has made there, unfortunately, they add details that now have questions that, yes, you could argue the minister should be answering.
And it goes just beyond the minister. I mean, at this point, the minister is the one that will have oversight over everything. But again, it also goes to the management of Paria Fuel Trading Company Limited. And beyond that, the claims that he's making, it goes in line with everything that has been raised in the public domain since this first came to light. For example, the last line in that, a very, very serious line, and you have to understand that this individual is filled with emotion, a lot of anger, a lot of hurt, and it's very difficult at times to really try and fight that. And at this point, he can't. And to say, in my opinion, in my eyes, you're a murderer, that is very, very strong.
I have heard a legal opinion from an outside lawyer that there is in that lawyer's opinion, there is a good possibility of criminal negligence and significant culpability, liability with this situation.
Which criminal negligence doesn't necessarily equate to murder. But again, all this should be part of the investigations going forward. Camille, we've left you sitting there for a while, my friend. We do apologize, but we ourselves here on Talking Point, we're astounded by everything that was said. What are your thoughts and opinions?
So firstly, this was my first time seeing the video, but as you were mentioning, it's something very strong, and let me say it's a strong allegation that the guy in the video who was speaking would have made. And I don't think that anyone would just make an allegation or say that very, very frontally. And so the thing about it is that it begs the question as to what were the policies in place or whatever risk assessment or plans, because obviously they are aware of the risk related to the job, and that's Paria and the management. And of course, I expect them to have some sort of plan in place in the event that something like this takes place, because they would obviously know that the possibility exists for something like this to take place. And so if it is in fact true what he's saying, that they would have made the decision to block off that only point that they could have potentially come back to be rescued, and they were in fact left inside of there for 72 hours plus before being recovered yesterday. It's something that I don't think that someone would just come out and say it's to say that he had the evidence.
Well, Camille, you just stated that they should have plans in place, because there's always the possibility in these scenarios, these situations, especially with the level of work and what is involved, they should have policies in place to deal with these things. But that is an assumption on our part. We're assuming that they had planning and they actually had some sense of vision to state that this is a possibility, because it seems as though that's not the case, or at least if it is the case, it's really harsh, the protocols that are involved, and that's putting it very lightly.
Well, it's clear to me based on all the events that would have transpired from Friday night to now, they clearly have no sort of plans in place in the event that something like this goes wrong. Because had there been plans, they would have been able to either send down persons or find whatever way it is possible, if not to rescue them, but to be able to recover their bodies quicker. Because yesterday we had we had Saturday passed, Sunday passed. Sunday would have been 48 hours. Only late yesterday afternoon, they said in their release, I think after 5, would they have been able to recover the bodies. And it speaks to a lack of any sort of plans on their part in the event that something like this goes wrong.
It certainly is, and sure, in the event of this something going wrong, as has, according to the next individual whom we're about to hear from, He's stating that there was no physical effort. And he stated that yesterday morning. And we're hearing from this individual whose father unfortunately lost his life in this accident, stating that no physical effort on the part of Paria was made either.
Well, so the only thing there is, unfortunately, it's one thing now, the gentleman's son, he is giving a chain of events. This is when I got there. This is what I saw. This is what I experienced. I went down. So his words have a significant amount of weight. As Camille said, you don't expect him to be, just talking a pile of nonsense with regards to what he says he saw. With regards to Mr. Abdullah, who would be our clip, I do have to question exactly like, where were you? How involved were you? To what extent did you see? Because yes, you didn't see any activity on the surface or from wherever you stood. A rescue like this, you're not going to have a lot of people running around and doing things. At the end of the day, it's really just the people to make the decision and the divers to go.
Well, let's make it clear. Mr. David Abdullah, whom we're about to hear from, that in this particular case, Mr. Abdullah played no role in terms of management or rescue efforts. But his presence was there from Friday, and he indicated that he was there all day Sunday. And what we're about to hear, he stated that from what he was told and from what he's been made aware of by those on the ground, this is what he would have indicated yesterday. So let's take a look at the first clip, because we have two. Let's take a look at the first clip on the part of Mr. David Abdullah.
We say that the way in which the families of the 4 divers who are missing, the families of Faisal Kurban, Rishi Nagasar, Yusuf Henry, and Kazim Ali Jr., those families were treated, and particularly the first 3, in an absolutely reprehensible manner. Absolutely reprehensible. It was inhumane. The families were not brought in, say, to a comfortable circumstance in the admin building, provided with food and refreshments and other facilities. At no point in time until that press conference did the families get the information that the company presented to the world. So the families heard for the first time what the whole world heard in that press conference, that as far as the company was concerned, the 4 divers' survivability was very low. They can't do a rescue operation, and they're now going to simply do a recovery. That's when the family heard. I heard last night one of the company officials say, well, counseling was offered on Saturday afternoon, and the families know where to go to get it. No, that's just not acceptable. There should have been a whole process put in place from the beginning, of communication, of counseling from the beginning, of information and all of that. And that's where I want to start. And it's a callous disregard for life in this society by the elites, by those in charge, those who have power, either economic or political power. Callous disregard for life.
It was inhumane. It was reprehensible. The treatment on the part of Paria towards the families in this situation. And it goes, another aspect of this, Sean, it goes to what our commentator yesterday, Alderman Daniel Piper, was indicating. Communication.
Yes.
The simple, basic, little thing. The most powerful thing is information. And even the minister stated that, well, it seems as though Paria messed up. They didn't follow my instructions in which I told them to communicate with the family.
Right, and I think this is a lack of proficiency on their part, maybe because they are not well practiced in this sort of thing. That's not an excuse in this case, particularly when they were instructed to do something. You would hope that they would, put a little bit more effort into it. It's almost like you have a project for a university assignment, and you kind of just, well, what does the lecturer want? I'll just do whatever. It's like you can't just do any old thing when you literally have 4 families in grief over the potential of their loved one's death in the middle of a rescue operation, and they don't have access to information. Now, that said, I don't necessarily agree with everything Mr. Andula said about the victim support. or the family support. I agree with some of it. It could have been communicated better. Things should have been put in place to communicate with them first before you release it to the public. Yes, but not everything. To say it was inhumane, I wouldn't go that far. Like the issue with counseling. If I am a family member, I don't want grief counseling on the first day of the accident, of the rescue, because what you're telling me is dead already.
Hold on,
That's
Sean,
not necessarily how these things work.
Sean, I'm not necessarily disagreeing what you're stating. And at the same time, we could state the same thing, what I'm about to say for Mr. Abdullah and what he said. But we ourselves cannot project opinions based off of our personal reasoning.
But this is not, I wouldn't say this is personal. I think this is observable, where denial is going to be put in place. But more importantly, you don't necessarily want to send signals giving people false hope or, crushing people's hope unnecessarily.
But counseling does not necessarily mean the individual has passed away. Right? Counseling is to deal with the initial grief and the stress, the trauma involved with the rescue efforts. So again, I'm not stating that, yes, okay, Mr. Abdullah is right. I'm just stating that if we are to take a look at this from an all-around neutral perspective, we can't take a personal side. We can't say that I wouldn't want this or I wouldn't want that.
Okay, let me rephrase that. I don't see the lack of counseling at the start of the emergency as an issue. Now, you could argue that counseling services and how they're offered, particularly around the time when they announced we're going from rescue to recovery, that should have been better handled. But I don't see the need for it at the start when I'm very certain the family does not want to go off into a side room to talk about their feelings.
Camille, what are your thoughts on that?
I would agree with Sean in this case, because it can't be that less than 24 hours after you are telling me that, well, counseling is available. I mean, yes, there is some level of support, but at that point, you as a family member, at least I can speak for myself, I would not necessarily want to, even if it's any form of counseling, I would not want, my main concern is to get back my family member. We can speak about counseling after. That's my honest opinion. Counseling would not be like my first option my first go-to thing. It's a matter of I want to recover my family member first, or more rescue them, as the case may be, and then we can speak about counseling after.
Mm-hmm. Well, fair enough. As I said, from this perspective, I think all should have been provided to the family, at least as options. Options. If you want to receive counseling on any part, if you need to talk to anyone on any part, the option is there.
But what Camille said points out, recovery, each family member, hopefully alive, most important, communication, information, what's going on.
Communication is, do we need to stress any further on this program about communication? Anyway, there is a second clip on the part of Mr. Abdullah in which he will make certain claims. Again, this to a certain degree coincides with what the family member stated in relation to the rescue operation. So let's take a look at the second clip from Mr. David Abdullah.
There was no actual effort, no actual physical effort to rescue the four divers. The company official said in a press conference last night that they were trying to get information, and without information they didn't know what the conditions were in the pipeline, and they couldn't go into the pipeline because they didn't know what the conditions were, etc., etc. Now that, first of all, that just does not ring true. I mean, you needed people who have industrial experience as divers. Those are the people, and they were there. There were people, industrial divers, on the spot on Friday afternoon within hours of the incident taking place. And they were turned back. And we must ask, why were they turned back? Because they were prepared to go in and make an effort to locate the missing divers. Even before the job started, the company ought to have known what were the conditions in the pipeline. In other words, before you get up a permit to do that kind of work, you must know what are the conditions in the pipeline. Otherwise, you can't start that kind of work.
No, that is an extremely, and I cannot stress this enough, that is an extremely important point. The very last point he made in relation to knowing the conditions, and hopefully the independent investigation will highlight this as well. Knowing the conditions determining the work that has to be done and how the conditions will affect work and what's the best way to proceed. We can only assume that if the company did not do that on their part, that at least the divers would have done their due diligence before going down there. And again, I hope that we understand that I'm not trying to be harsh in any way, but it's an all-round perspective that we're examining.
Well, I mean, you just said a statement there that implies another avenue that not a lot of people would want to go down. I don't want to go down there just yet. Camille, I want to give you a chance to speak before I speak on what Mr. Abdullah said, so that I don't necessarily color your opinion.
Sure. So this is my thing. He's totally correct. They should have known, not necessarily the divers and the persons that were monitoring offshore should have known what are the conditions within the pipe, because I'm sure this is not the first time that they were undertaking such subsea technical work. And it's a matter of not just knowing, but understanding what you are getting yourself into. And having said that, I would like to, the question arises as to whether or when the team that was monitoring onshore would have noticed that there was no communication between themselves and the divers. Because if you look at work like this internationally, there's always some communication mechanism between the monitoring team and the team that's actually diving. So it's a matter of, it simply shows that there were a lot of gaps, as Mr. Young said, because of the fact that no one was able. No, I'm still yet to know at what point did you all realize we're not getting communication with them. It was said that some vacuum was turned on, that's how they were sucked into the pipe. Who made the decision to turn on this vacuum? I'm sure it's a matter of, this is a step-by-step process. It's not something that you just undertake just like that. And as Mr. Abdullah was saying, before you are permitted to do this work, you should be aware of what they were getting into.
Kemil, I fully agree with you. Coming to you now, Sean, I just want to quickly add to what Kemil was stating. Best practice indicates that now there's technology that allows you to actually communicate voice to voice with divers when they're underwater.
But it depends on your rig.
Right. I don't know whether or not we have that technology. But best practice, the most basic thing is that there's always a marker to locate. You may not know the depth at which your dive is at, but you know their location.
Well, so they're in a hyperbaric shape. I forget the term. They're in basically like almost something like a diving bell to work on the pipe. And I believe the pressure that kept the water down out of the bell was disrupted with the suction. If it was a vacuum that was turned on, that's an interesting development. But hold on. First, with regards to Mr. Abdullah's claim that no work was being done. Is he talking about Friday? Is he talking about Sunday? Because I think one of the unfortunate realities of the situation is this. Unless there was some avenue for air to get to them, by the end of Friday, they were probably unfortunately passed. Right? I'm just going to say that outright, because your air tanks will only have so much oxygen in it. It will only last so long.
Well, based on what the one diver was rescued, what he was stating is that they were sharing oxygen device, but they were able to breathe within the pipe because there was a gap between the pipe and the water.
Right, but there's only so much air in there as well. So the odds of survival are really low by Sunday at the end of the day. So you can't expect the same sort of frantic pace. They probably knew, and they were just doing their due diligence to see what left they could do before they officially call it. Now, with regards to knowing about the dangers of the job, one of the things, and this is, I think, one of the reasons why the minister did not speculate, you have to question everything. Did PARIA put everything in place? Did the divers put everything in place? Did the divers know about all the risks? Did PARIA tell them? Was there any safety protocols that one party or the other might have overlooked? Maybe there was, and with a conversation with somebody I know about machinery, at times people who operate around heavy machinery, they get experience, they get a little bit complacent, and it only takes a little bit for a major accident. I'm not saying that the divers skated safety protocols. I'm saying that now that we've reached this point, we have to let the investigation sort that out. Now, if there was a vacuum, with regards to the allegation of sealing the pipe, all I'll say is this: if they had a vacuum mechanism, I don't know if maybe they were trying to block the water and maybe pump out some of the water. However, I don't know how oxygen is going to replace the water in that case. So there's a lot of technical things that we do need to sort out before we speculate. That said, why divers did not go in, as the son asked, because he did go in. He said he went 70 feet in. That is a question I do think needs to be answered sooner rather than later.
I think it's the other way around. As we break for news on the hour, Kemi, you'll stay with us. But as I'm stating, I think you're going to speculate until a lot of technical issues are sorted out. Not when it's sorted out will we speculate.
I just want to know why more divers weren't allowed to go in.
Anyway, folks, let's take a break here on the program. And when we return, we'll open up the phone lines this morning. Stay tuned to Talking Point.
Seven is out, all day is in. WESN News on the hour.
Every day, we communicate through stories. Stories of ourselves, our challenges, our goals, our experiences, and our aspirations. Storytelling is an art that we have mastered. WESN Film Studios comprises a collaborative team of experts with extensive industry experience locally, regionally, and internationally. The ability of your business to successfully communicate with your preferred audience depends on the strength of the stories you tell. Your vision should be communicated in a high-quality, professional, and creative way. From concept to post-production, advertising to film, multi-camera productions, live events, streaming, and virtual conferencing, we are WESN Film Studio. Let your own unique voice be heard and your vision realized. Call us today at 628-5835 for your next production.
In this season, we talk more about health, wellness, and everything in between. I am so excited to share with you everything about health and wellness so that you can design the life that you've always dreamed of. Join me here on What's Up Doc. What's Up Doc, Tuesdays and Thursdays here on WESN, Content Capital.
We are WESN, the premier platform for Caribbean content. WESN, covering West, East, South, and North. WESN, we entertainment, sports, and news. WESN, available on Green Dot 7, Amplia 118, Airlink 17, B-Mobile 107, Digital 21, ICN TT 105, and Flow 110. Connect with us at WESNCC or stream online at www.wesncc.com. WESN, your premier platform for Caribbean content.
The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you, what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through? Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
Burning questions, urgent topics, welcome back to One on One, the show where we tackle the most current and pertinent subjects that are affecting all citizens, where we ask the hard questions and have in-depth conversations. What separates One on One from other talk shows is that the conversation stems from a younger perspective on topics that affect the fabric of our society. One on One, Wednesdays at 10 a.m. on WESN Content Capital.
It may seem like the hardest thing to do right now, but we all need each other to wear a mask, wash our hands, watch our physical distance, and stay at home. We need you safe. Together we can make the difference. Together we can curb the spread of COVID-19. So let's be responsible in our actions. The Trinidad and Tobago Red Cross Society. Mission-based, people-focused, community-driven.
Welcome back to Talking Point here on WESN Content Capital. Sean Michael Small alongside me, Keaton Shaw, and with us via Zoom is Kemuel Pascal. Kemuel, thank you for staying with us. Let's give an opportunity now to the viewing public to express their opinions and their thoughts as to the latest happenings across Trinidad and Tobago. Call us in on the program 623-9376, 622-9338. Good morning, caller from Pitty Valley.
Good morning, Sean and Keaton.
Good morning.
First of all, condolences go out to the four divers family.
Yeah.
In terms of the question, what we are looking at saying, why other divers didn't go down. It could be a point making that PARIA, even I think the Coast Guard, make a risk assessment might be too dangerous for other personnel to go down and probably even lose their life too. For example, which I'll draw, in fire service, firefighting, sometimes the fire service chief might make an assessment that it's too dangerous to go in a particular place in flames, and they make an assessment where they can't go in, probably even to save somebody. So what I'm just saying, it could be they make an assessment was too dangerous for other personnel to go down.
Now,
I could be wrong, that's just my little point.
Yeah. Now, you're not necessarily wrong, because Sean and I did suggest that on yesterday's program. What we're asking now, based off of what we would have heard from one of the family members, I mean, he went 70 feet down and he wasn't able to go further. And that's what we're trying to figure out exactly, just based off of that piece of information, the possibilities, put it that way.
Apologies to him, his name is Michael Kerban. He claims it was the manager that said that they can't go down. Now, to be fair, in a situation like this, it could be that he heard from the manager. That doesn't necessarily mean that the manager was the one that ultimately made the decision. We don't know the chain of events. But
yeah, but we'll wait to hear more. More things will come out and we'll find out what really.
Well, hopefully.
Yeah.
Hopefully. I mean, it is a question that should be answered, and I guess we should just wait now for the information.
Okay, guys. Have a
All right,
Thank
have
you.
a great
Thank
day.
you, caller.
Thank you very much. Good morning, caller from Digger Martin.
Mr. Small and Mr. Shagan.
And Mr. Pascal, good morning.
Mr. Pascal, very, very good morning. Okay, I'm going to open this morning. There's an old adage. Show me your friends, and I will tell you who you are. Show me your spouse, and I will definitely confirm it. Look at the behavior of Parliament. Who is the main steward in Parliament to regulate? Who have denied the 3,600 questions about those COVID deaths? It went up to Parliament 3-4 times, and a person who was a steward refused it. Look at the behavior in PARIA.
Yeah, no, but caller, let's not do this. Let's not do this.
The judiciary responsibility of the board. Why are they hiding and avoiding particular questions? Somebody did make a decision not to send nobody. Was that person determining if that person survived or died? Was that an execution by drowning? We need a forensic, I would say, a clinical analysis.
All right, caller, thank you.
We can't determine who survived or not.
Yeah.
A man went down and saved another man's life. He made a decision. He got the inspiration to go down there. He believed he had it all at that point in time.
Well,
attitude is
well,
more important than money. And where is the police in all of this? 4 bodies. Has the police opened up an investigation? You had Stuart taking the place of the board of directors. He was fumbling. He had to do a tutorial to come and look stupid. Okay, sorry. You wanted to respond.
But thank you, caller, for your point. Listen, as much as you want to allude to the fact that the Speaker of the House of Parliament and the Chairman of the Board of Paria are husband and wife, let us not try to let's not go on in that direction and not push any sort of narrative in that instance.
I will say this. I agree with him. The board probably should have been the first people to communicate before the minister communicated.
Of course.
That's one. However, two, the timing of the whole situation, even the timeline, we are not entirely sure on. That and all has pertinence to decisions to go down or not. And the diver, he did not necessarily go down to rescue the survivor. The survivor was in the hyperbaric chamber. He rescued him, I believe, from there.
Caller, in relation to asking why there's no police investigation, that's a fair question. But again, please, let's refrain from pushing
You have
this.
to assess the accident first to then see if there is criminal.
Not push this husband and wife. Let's not push that narrative, please. We try to refrain from that on this program. Good morning, caller from San Fernando.
Gentlemen, good morning.
Good morning.
I was appalled with that press conference by the Minister of Energy.
Mm-hmm.
Because, and let me say why. There was a press conference on Sunday night with the Paria individuals. The chairman, the CEO, and the manager of the port.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's another one on Monday with the energy minister, who is trying to explain to us the sequences with respect to the actual incident, which he has no place in doing. He is the energy minister. That's what he is, That should have been explained in the press conference with the personnel from, and for my part, it should have been one press conference where the energy minister may have chaired it, and then they had the Paria people there to do the explanations, because there is potential liability. And as far as I saw there, the energy minister tried to shield Paria from potential liability by him taking on, because all he can say there is what he was told,
Yes, but he wasn't very smart in trying to shield Paria. He contradicted himself.
I don't think he was trying to shield Paria per se.
But that, as I said, that is my opinion.
Yeah.
And he should not have done that. Now, the other thing, Sean, you said something there which I took out. With respect, you said about the grief counseling. And I have to agree with Keaton in this, because there seems to be a lack of crisis management ability in Paria. And in that situation, you just said, you contradicted yourself by saying one thing, and then you came back and said that you think by at least because of the air situation and stuff, at least sometime on Friday night, you could have presumed that those people would have been deceased down there. And
Friday is possible. Sunday is reasonable.
But my thing is, you provide the facility. Now, grief counseling takes many different aspects. If you remember that tower collapse recently in the U.S. in Florida, the next day at the press conference with the mayor, the head of the police, the fire service, and all those people, the mayor said at that time, we have provided counseling facilities for those who require it. And that is what should have been done. That was the next day. We talking about 3 days? Come on, man.
Based on what Mr. Abdullah said, they did provide, but it's just how they provided it was very, it seemed lackadaisical.
That was on Sunday.
That
was on Sunday.
No, well, by saying that they provided it, they didn't give the actual date that it was given. They just said on Sunday they acknowledged that it was provided.
Yeah. All right, caller, we have more calls.
Sure.
We have more calls, but thank you very much for your
I can't
contribution.
even remember everything that he said.
Good morning, caller from Claxton Bay. Hello, good morning.
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 Morning, Mr. Fisherman.
Morning to the next young guy there.
Morning.
My take is, why does the authorities take so long to try and rescue these guys out? They did not have nothing in place
Yeah.
for these safety precautions in place for these divers.
Mm-hmm.
One. And when they put in this investigation team, it could be like the past, everything they investigate from Abu Bakr coming down, you don't know exactly what's going on. It's a hush thing out there. Just a cover up. Everything will be covered up. The public will get to know what's going on really.
Yeah.
As the public, we only have to speculate what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
But we live in about roughly 3 miles from the incident from our port.
Okay.
Right?
Uh-huh.
And we just see what goes on. We know what we think, but they have no safety precautions for these people.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, Friday that happened, a guy called me to use my boat to go out,
Uh-huh.
But so the tide was, we just woke the tide was down, the boat was mounted wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Couldn't go. To give them assistance, you understand?
Yeah.
So these things will just be a little cover off with this big guy. They have a guy who I get to understand a big guy who interfere with the line, the valves block off. And why they let people go to go and rescue their family? These guys are drivers, professional drivers. I know them for years, from little boys.
Hi, Mr. Fisherman.
All right, take care. Let somebody else address.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you. Good morning, caller from Tobago. Hello, good morning.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Thank you for this opportunity. Just want to read a brief edit from the organization Tobago Civil Net. Tobago Civil Net joins the families and friends in mourning the tragic and frightening deaths of Kazim Ali Jr., Yusuf Henry, Rishi Nagasa, and Fazal Kurban, who died performing a diving operation. We ask that all of Tobago and Trinidad take a moment of silence in their own time and send strength to the families and close friends of these brave men. May their souls rest in peace.
Yeah.
And we think it's way too soon at this time to engage in finger pointing. These families and friends are in pain. And at this moment, we just need to surround them with strength, send them more prayers or meditation, mourn for these souls. I can't even imagine what it has had to have been in that pipe as they felt death closing in on them. That's just, my mind cannot wrap itself around.
Yeah.
All I can think of is perhaps the Holocaust and the enslavement of the Africans who were thrown overboard alive, and all of these kind of torturous type of deaths. That's all that could come to my mind.
Yeah.
So I think it's way too soon to engage in finger pointing. Let us take a moment. Let these souls go to their resting place. Wrap your arms and minds around the family, and perhaps, later on, we can get into the finger pointing.
Yeah.
But right now, let's just mourn for these souls, man. This is just too sad.
Yeah.
All right, gentlemen. Thank you very much.
Have a good day, caller.
Thank you, caller.
Thank you for your contribution, and I just like to add that you said you couldn't imagine, and this is exactly what was going through my mind yesterday as I was reading the account of Mr. Budram, who fortunately one soul was saved, and he was giving his account of his experience, and listening to the details of that, Sean, it was very hard to digest, very, very hard to digest, and to picture in my mind, and
No, it's one of the reasons why I am not cut out for that sort of job. I know that. It's not something, dangerous jobs like that, gentlemen who do it, that's a different breed of people, men or women, and I commend all of them for it, and it's very, very unfortunate that this happened.
Good morning, caller.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning, sir.
I'm just going to offer my condolences to those families who lost their loved ones. And I just my opinion, I think that the board should be removed for the time being because the situation that happened at Peloton could happen again. And when these things go to court, hearsay doesn't matter. It's evidence they have to provide. So put them aside for the time being until that investigation is finished and hope that we get a fair and good result in whatever has to be done. Thank you and good morning.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
With regards to the board, and I want to go 3 callers back what he said. I don't think that the minister was covering for them. From what I understand of the minister and his role in government, I will not be surprised if the board, and I saw parts of their press conference and it didn't seem like much of anything. I would not be surprised if the board was essentially hiding from public spotlight and the minister was basically saying, well, you know, I can't wait on all you. Somebody has to communicate because this is a problem. I'm going to do it myself. He seems to be, I'm going to do it myself, kind of. That's how he operates. So I don't know if he was necessary. Yes, he was shielding him in the sense of...
has the power, the authority, and the privilege to instruct the board to speak to the public. Where is Newman George?
Right. So by him doing it, he is giving them a free pass because he's taking it upon himself.
And I think this is what the caller was alluding to.
And you could argue that by him doing that, he now has to realize he's opened himself up to criticism because he's involved himself too soon in the process. So, you know, he has to take his lumps now if there are any lumps to be taken with regards to his public statements. But yes, the board is not doing what the board is supposed to be doing.
Taking a moment to reflect on this situation and the families and the souls that have departed tragically. Good morning, caller from Faizabad. Hello, good morning.
Caller, you're live.
Hello, good morning, guys.
Good morning.
Morning to the Trinidad and Tobago, condolences to the family. Guys, a couple of things that we need to understand here. I guess the risk assessment of going to get the job done probably didn't identify confined space entry. Then, the condition changed. So knowing what was in the pipeline was probably a bit difficult to understand. Confined space entry now has so many rules associated with it. And, you know, we've in the industry, we have learned where rescuers have, you know, get into difficulties and stuff like that while trying to go into a confined space entry, and, you know, they pass, and then the next one goes, and the cycle remains the same. The thing is, confined space entry have so much rules associated with it, and it is very difficult to make a judgment call based on not having the correct assessment done in the correct point in time. So, you know, just to throw in some more information or more added knowledge into the mix to understand exactly, you know, about confined space entry.
Yeah. Yes. Caller from Faizabad, thank you very much.
Just before the next caller, I should acknowledge our commentator has signed off. So Camille Pascal has left the program. We thank him for his contribution.
Yes. Thank you very much, Camille. We look forward to hearing from you next week. We have a caller on the line from Shigones. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Morning, Professor.
I cannot understand the logic for asking the board to step down. If the board was to do that, what will you do? Point an ex-board in the place? I can't understand it. You have any idea why the board should step down? Unless you suspect one of them involved with something.
Well, I don't know. I don't know about stepping down. I think the board, I think what some individuals, and I agree with this, while the independent investigation is going on, should probably be suspended. And the reason why I'm stating that is because...
but if it's suspended, do you put an ex-board in place?
Hold on, caller. I'm answering your question. What I'm stating is that we're not removing the board. They are suspended from their duties, from active duties, until the investigation is completed. Because, again, the most curious thing to me is the mere fact that the board has remained silent and the chairman of the board has remained silent. So I think that, again, let me tell you, not remove. Right? I don't think there are grounds to remove us yet, but there's certainly grounds to suspend until the independent investigation has been conducted.
I don't understand. I don't understand. What does suspension? And even if you suspend them, who will carry out their duties?
Well, some of their duties might be put on hold. Some of their duties might be taken up by officers,
the chief executive officer,
by various officers, not members of the boards, right? Executives or management.
You cannot give the workers to do the oversight.
Okay. Well, there are other members of executive management.
Yeah, you're not necessarily going to replace them one for one, but you might parcel off the various responsibilities either below the chain or above the chain, depending on the situation.
But Professor, as I said, there are other members of executive management, and this has transpired in many companies before, private and public. So, but thank you very much, Professor, for your contribution. Have a good day. I think we have another call on the line.
I'll say this. I think the thing about removing the board, it might not necessarily be short-term. That might be more of a long-term thing. So I understand what the professor is saying. You don't have to do it now. Let the investigation come out. Because ultimately speaking, I don't know if they're caught up in the accident. The one thing we know that they have done wrong is the communication aspect.
As I said, suspend operations, suspend from active duty until investigation takes place. I'm not saying remove. I'm not stating that. Good morning, caller from Chaguanas.
Hi.
Sorry, from Tigomorton.
Chaguanas, Tigomorton.
Tigomorton,
Hi,
good
guys.
morning.
Good morning. Thank you. I do agree with that suspension that I just overheard there. So firstly, I share the pain of those families, and I never got past the second paragraph of that article.
Yes. Yeah.
Keaton, I'm really happy that you stated you were defensive yesterday. But it's only obvious that these people are devastated and angry. And besides the details, what's in question, it doesn't matter what the hell was going on down there, is whether or not the OSH protocols were adhered to and what were the emergency procedures. Like for the greatest environmental disaster in the U.S., Deepwater Horizon in 2010, when 11 were killed, 17 injured. And the whole environment devastated. That occurred because the fail-safe mechanism failed. If you fail-safe failing. But what do we have here? No one knows. And the disrespect shown to the families is what is so unacceptable.
Yes.
Furthermore, because we live in a country where ministers lie and deflect for everything, there's an investigation upon investigation. We never get the results or learn from tragedies.
Never.
People are just furious and they think someone must be held accountable. Look, just recently, okay, if we're just to wake up every morning and consider the last few weeks of our lives, we're still awaiting police service typical answers. The baby whose head was blown off answers. That was just an accident and no one is accountable. The blackout answers. For how long, Keaton and Sean? As you rightly asked the alderman yesterday, and that stupid answer about it being relative, that's just rubbish. 60 years is relative. These are the things that have people so furious.
Yeah.
Thanks, and people must be held accountable after the investigation. Proper procedures must be in place, new machinery, billions must be spent or millions, whatever, to ensure that these things do not happen again. And that is what never happens in our country, which makes every little thing a huge disaster.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you very much, caller. Thank you.
So, I still am not ready to go with the board yet unless you're willing to, because that's a punishment, right?
I will repeat myself. Suspend active duty and not remove. There's a difference.
The public message is they're guilty of something.
That's the problem
again, with suspension.
Again, you have to understand, the public is very frustrated. The public is angry. The public is hurt.
So now here goes with the next point, and we do have to ask, held accountable. Do we need to make scapegoats of people? To kind of say, well, okay, scapegoats not in the sense of they're innocent, but we're just making them out to be guilty, but scapegoats in the sense of you're guilty and we're going to be harsh on you, and it might be a little bit unfair, but you know what? We have too much of this going on, so let's be a little harsh for a few instances and see if people are still willing to play fast and loose with the rules. So that, it's an interesting question to debate. We don't have time for it now. But one thing I would like to end off is with regards to the timing of the rescue. Every time I hear this diver was however many hours out, or it took however many hours before this decision, I cringe inside. I cringe inside because in a rescue like this, time is so precious, and there's a lot of questions. There's a lot of questions with regards to if some vacuum mechanism was activated.
Yeah. Anyway, folks, Sean, I will do the honors of concluding on your part this morning.
Well, just say, be more involved in your politics, people, if you don't like how things are going.
More so, folks, I plead with you and I implore you today to take a moment out of your daily duties and just say a prayer, a silent prayer, take a moment of silence to send your thoughts, your positivity, and your strength to these families. And may the departed souls find their way to eternal peace. Folks, this is very difficult. It was extremely difficult reading the stories and reading the accounts of what transpired and the experience on the part of the lone survivor. We are praying and hoping that the fourth body is recovered soon enough so that they may all be sent off in the most respectful and righteous manner. As we depart on Talking Point, once more we say, on behalf of the team here and the WESN family, we extend our condolences and we send our prayers and our strongest and most positive thoughts to the family. May they rest in peace. Trinidad and Tobago, we will see you again tomorrow morning. Bye-bye.